was working and living on campus as a resident assistant, and so that meant I rarely had a chance to get space from the students so that I could recharge my batteries. And in the final 2 years that I was there, the economic crisis actually hit Europe, and so what happened was actually it caused severe salary cuts for all the staff at the school. So you can imagine all these red flags going off. These are warning signs at any place that you're working. And the thing was for me is I was blind to those warning signs, to those red flags. I was blind because I was so dedicated and committed to the mission of the school and its students. And the combination of that dedication combined with some garden variety perfectionism and a distorted belief in my own indispensability resulted in my feeling tired, isolated, and burnt out. But I kept going. I kept pushing and pushing and pushing until things got worse. In fact, I got to the point where I couldn't eat, I couldn't sleep, I was depressed, I was having panic attacks every day, and my body was literally deteriorating under the stress that I was going through in my job. And this resulted in me having a breakdown and having an urgent need to return back to Canada in 2010. I was a mess. When I returned to Canada, I was jobless, I was burnt out, and unbeknownst to me, I had undiagnosed PTSD that was triggered from the job stress that I was in. In addition to that, when I came home to Toronto, to the airport, I was in so much physical and psychological pain that the stewardess had to cart me through arrivals in a wheelchair because I could barely walk. You should have seen the look on my friend's face when he greeted me at the airport. The stunned look on his face was only slightly offset by the fact that he welcomed me home to an iced cappuccino from Tim Hortons. And I thought to myself, Tim Hortons, the best way to welcome a Canadian home. I think that first year that I was back in Canada was the hardest to readjust to Canadian life. I went through hours of painful physiotherapy to regain my physical strength again. I also enlisted in months of trauma therapy to work through my PTSD and to restore my mental health. And it was that year that I went through, that year of recovery, that enabled me to start thinking about job searching again. The trouble was, I had returned to Ontario in the midst of an economic crisis. Only 20% of teachers in Ontario coming out of Teachers College were actually getting full-time employment. And to top it all off, my teaching background was in philosophy. And we all know what hiring managers say about philosophy teachers. They basically say, the difference between a philosophy teacher and a park bench is that a park bench can actually support a family of 4. This led to a personal career crisis for me. I thought to myself, do I go in the direction of teaching as a profession? Somebody liked that joke. Or do I go in the direction of something new, something else? Do I reinvent myself? And in retrospect, I'm so glad that I decided to blaze a new path. Success started coming my way when I took interest courses and started researching my career options. So I looked into options like academic advisor, reference librarian, even psychotherapist. So I looked at those options, but honestly, I was still unsure about how to proceed and move forward. But thankfully, clarity came to me when I actually started reaching out to people who were working in my fields of interest. So I reached out to academic advisors. I reached out to reference librarians. I reached out to psychotherapists. I even reached out to career coaches, ironically. And then it hit me. Why don't I use my background as a teacher to actually help people move through career transitions like the very transition I was going through at that time? This realization hit me like a ton of bricks. It made complete sense. And before I knew it, I was back in school to earn my career coaching certificate. And within 1 week of graduating, I landed my first gig. I'm actually really proud of that accomplishment. It wasn't long before I stopped chasing work contracts and started launching my own business here in Guelph. And it's actually been going for 5 years strong. And to be honest, I absolutely love what I do. I enjoy walking alongside people on their career journeys to help them find the clarity, the confidence, and the courage that they need to take their next steps. Honestly, they still go through ups and downs, but I can relate to those ups and downs. I know what that's like. I know what it's like to go through that. And quite frankly, the most rewarding thing about career coaching is drawing upon the insights that I learned through my own career crisis to pay it forward in my clients' lives so that they can succeed. Allow me to share just 3 of those insights with you. The first thing I learned through my own career change process was that reaching out for support, asking for help, it's a strength. It's not a weakness. You see, in the lowest point in my life, in my career, I reached out to friends. I reached out to family members. I reached out to advisors to get clarity about my next steps. And honestly, I felt like a burden asking for help. I felt weak. But through that process, I had to learn that I was worthy of help, that I was worthy of having my needs met just as much as anybody else deserves. And it was their support that helped me have the courage to actually take risks and open up a new chapter in my life. The second lesson that I learned was that self-care is absolutely essential to career change. No more running after jobs where I don't have personal boundaries, okay? I'm a lot better at taking care of myself now. And just as an example, a simple example of that is when I go home, I put on an autoresponder so that I'm not checking work emails during off hours. Simple things like that enable me to value and prioritize work-life balance in my life because I honestly believe now that anything I trade for my mental health is too expensive. Lesson number 3 that I learned through my career change was that clarity comes through good research. Just as I would test drive a car before I buy it, so I decided to interview career coaches, actual career coaches who were in the fields I was interested in, so that I could figure out what I was getting myself into. And the outcome was unexpectedly awesome. I can still remember the first career coach that I talked to at the University of Guelph. She answered all my questions. She became my mentor when I was doing my practicum placement. And we still keep in touch today. And it's a relationship that continues to pay dividends in my professional life, all because I reached out with questions. So those 3 pillars, reach out for support, self-care, research your options. Those were the 3 pillars that enabled me to overcome the career pain caused by the simultaneous reality of unemployment and a mental health crisis. So what does this mean for us? What does this mean for you? Well, maybe you're in the middle of a career transition. Maybe you want to get out of your job, or you're happy with where you're at. That's great. But I think we can all relate to the fact that change is part of life and change is hard. It's difficult. And career change does not happen overnight. It takes time, whether it takes people 2 months to change their careers, 2 years, it doesn't matter. The important thing is this, that we take small, incremental steps towards our career change goals. And that, my friend, takes patient progress, not perfection. Thank you.